EconOHMys, welcome to the interview of the week. This week we have Mikey from Vesta, who've just launched their protocol, and with me as always is Dropkick Darren. How you going, Mikey and Drop?
I am good.
I'm good myself as well. Thanks for asking.
Mikey, you've had the auction like maybe a week and a half ago, or was that long ago even? I don't know. Yep. It's hard to keep up these days in DeFi. And then you had the actual platform launch yesterday, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So Vesta is a stablecoin minting platform where users can come and lock their assets and then borrow against them. And they mint a stablecoin called VST. And the Vesta protocol is governed by the VSTA governance token, and the borrowing for VST went live yesterday with REN BTC, ETH, and Geom. Is that right, Mikey?
Yes. ETH and Geom for now. REN BTC quite soon.
So users come and they have their Geom, and they come to your platform, and then they're able to lock it in there, and they're able to borrow. I think the loan to value is like 65, is it? Somewhere around there?
For Geom is 57 at the moment.
Oh, okay, 57.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that can be modifiable by governance, but at the moment it's 57. And then you mint your VST, and then you pay a 1.25% fee, and it's not an ongoing interest rate. It's a one-time mint fee, like the Liquidity platform on Ethereum with their LUSD. And then you are able to go and spend that VST stablecoin if you like, or you can do some yield farming at the moment. You're sort of being very generous and magnanimous. The Vesta DAO is giving out some tokens to people who are coming and using the platform at the moment. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like you said, there's one main use of the stablecoin at the moment. Our stablecoin VST is currently trading against FRAX. So we have a curve pool set up, specifically a factor pool 19 if you're looking for it. I believe the APR is roughly 30 to 40%-ish at 25 million total value locked. Yeah, that's unfortunately that's the main use for now, but we are looking to expand the roadmap. On our roadmap, we're looking to expand the use of VST to a lot more use cases.
Oh, we can definitely get into that a little bit later on, but I want to kind of circle back to a bit of an off-topic question. But what's your least favorite thing about a podcast? Have you done many podcasts?
I have not. I have done one before. It was not in crypto. It was pretty fun. I liked it.
Maybe we can kind of touch on how you first got involved in crypto. Was it kind of like very early on, or was it more recently? And then maybe like we can also kind of segue into what kind of being involved in the space, like whether that did influence you to kind of spin up Vesta as a project.
Yeah. So I started working after undergrad at a layer 1 company. The company unfortunately didn't quite work out. Because of some, I would say, just internal politic issues. And but I did a lot of research, especially into zero-knowledge proof. I wouldn't say research as in like the actual cryptography, but just read a lot into, the different base layers, what are their advantages, gained a fairly solid understanding of just like these distributed ledger systems. After that, I went to a UI company, or rather a project in the crypto space that is on the UI layer. It is one of the, technically speaking, the most popular tool for people to check balances. I am coming really close to doxing myself, but that's okay. I worked there for a year or so, and then had the opportunity to meet a lot of fairly influential people, and basically pitch them, hey, I'm trying to build this thing, and then garner the angel round and basically build this, and that's it.
So Mikey, what was the inspiration? Do you want to tell us like how you came up with the idea? I mean, it's like is a pretty obvious pain point for like OHMYs and like everybody else for this, like being able to borrow against their assets on Arbitrum. But then it's done with this like really novel solution, which is like a multi-collateral implementation of like the Liquidity code. Do you want to tell us like how you ideated on it? Like, were you jamming about it with like people and being like, this would be really cool to build, and then one day you were like, I can do this. Why can't I be the one? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's very similar to what you just said. So, I was on the UI layer for the longest time, and it just wasn't so exciting to me. A lot of my connections, they are in the liquidity side of things. And I just saw that, it's just much more exciting. It's obviously much more on the gray area in terms of regulations, but gotta live a little. So I decided to jump in and started looking at different projects, and then realized that the particular model that Liquidity has pioneered is just good, right? Like, it's underutilized. A lot of projects that have tried to utilize this particular mechanism, they haven't seen successes because they basically didn't really think about how to improve upon it. But for us, when we started, we looked at what it does, and given like my own understanding of the landscape, of the DeFi landscape, the pain points of making it governable as well as making it multi-collateral was extremely obvious. So that's exactly what we did. And this, I guess another reason why it's worked out, it's twofold, is because of the support from Olympus. One, we're able to turn this particular liquidation setup into a more versatile when it comes to the types of collateral. But at the same time, it also matters what exact collaterals are we using. And so here is exactly where I was fortunate enough to be introduced to the Olympus team, Mark, you, as well as some of the other core members of the team. And from day one, it was ideated that GOHM or some whatever form of OHM would be a collateral so that we would be entrenched in the Olympus ecosystem. And so, yeah, I think the success is twofold here.
Maybe we can talk about like that when you kind of initially stumbled across Olympus, and when was it kind of like first taking notice of Olympus, and maybe like, there's a big user base here. How do we kind of, help this user base by building, some kind of system or tooling to like better, accommodate for a need. Maybe we can talk about how we jumped through the kind of incubator channels, and maybe like kind of describe to some people what that was like initially going through being one of the first incubatees.
Yeah, so the incubator program has been extremely helpful to us. I can't really put into words how valuable it is. It's some of the members, they provided a lot of soft support in terms of like operations, stuff like that. We've also supported an extreme amount of support from the creating community. Going back to the start, I think I was a very heavy OHMY back in, I would say, July, August. I still am, but not as much because I did unload a little bit because it's certainly like one of the most interesting community that I've ever been in. It's the moment I joined the Discord and I started browsing around, I realized this is something different than a lot of other projects. I wasn't one of the first, like those who were here since the Discord event, stuff like that. But you don't have to be one of the first in this community to truly understand the kind of the bond that this project has created among the community. And so with that in mind, I knew that in order to truly achieve some sort of success on the partnership front, I need to partner with a strong community. And like I mentioned earlier, I was fortunate enough to be put in touch with Olympus team through an official channel. And, it's been relatively smooth sailing from there. We are solving a very key pain point for Olympus. And, in return, we've been able to become a part of the Olympus community. And so it's been a very pleasant experience, I would say.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great feedback for us at Incubator. I help out with running the Incubator, and yeah, Mikey, you're kind of learning a bit as we go with the Incubator. We've got like a couple of bits and pieces set up, but at the moment it's quite small scale, so we're like taking a lot of time to sort of meet with our partners and sort of help them with some pain points. I know Stefano, shout out Stefano, spent quite a bit of time chatting with you and the team over there and helping out with getting the operational structure. I think you kind of easy, you're like, oh, we'll get the code going, but then there's this whole other piece which is like, oh, we have to be a DAO, like we're going to need like, to set up how contributors are going to be onboarded, how like our Discord channels are going to be, like how we work together as a team. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about sort of the team, like how big is the team, and then we'll get into sort of the launch and how that went, and like you can tell us about the all the trials and tribulations and the like awesome feeling it must have been when you were able to kind of do that liquidity event to allow the kind of community to have some governance power over the protocol by buying up the VSTA token. So maybe you could just sort of start with like how the team formed, and then kind of we'll sort of skip ahead to the pre-launch, like when you were going to launch with Prime DAO, but then there was some issue. So yeah, maybe we can first start with sort of what the team's up to and sort of who's on the team and what they're developing and what their skills are, and then so we can get to know sort of you and the team a bit better, and then we can talk about sort of the raise and sort of the stress you must have been under.
Yeah, sure. So the team was put together through a mutual friend of mine and the rest of the team. His name is EconOHMy. And
Mikey.
Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
he was the guy who connected the talents here. So I was an engineer, but for this particular project, I'm not on the engineering side. I've been mostly on partnership, structuring the farming, and just overall strategizing what to do and stuff like that. But for the development talents, they were put in touch to me by Mikey, and one of them is a Solidity engineer. He's a extremely good developer, and he was working in Web2 up until very recently. And then basically all of the code was done by him on the Solidity side. So a extremely valuable talent that I was fortunate enough to meet. And there were another person who is also a friend. He is a full stack. Us three, we've just been collaborating, building this thing out by the three of us as the core team. We've also had help from other people, some of whom have been part-time contributors. They've been helping out on community, graphics design, and protocol design, and so on. So it's been a collective effort. If you count the number of people, I'd say there's a total of 7 or 8 people. Not all of them full-time, only the 3 of us are full-time. But yeah, it's been a very pleasant team bonding. I would just say it's been a very pleasant experience. I've been very fortunate.
Sounds like very slim and speedy team. I guess one thing that I know that Stefano helped out a lot on the operations side of things, but maybe we can kind of like walk through what that initial process was like, kind of like trying like spinning up the DAO, the Discord, and like seeing this kind of influx of new kind of like ohmys and I don't know if the is there Vestorians. I don't know if we have a name for VST holders yet, but yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, so I was able to garner the angel round fairly early. As you might have seen, the angel round did have relatively positive impact on the project once we announced it. But when we were starting out, I purposely did not want to like announce the angels. I wanted to like build a community from the ground up. And that's exactly what I did. Basically, we started creating a lot of assets. We started telling a story. This is kind of a weird name, but the people who just joined our community are called Vesta Virgins, because Vesta Virgin was this Roman. You can almost call her an official who was somewhat in charge of the governing of the city. I don't know exactly which city, but let's just say that this was a fairly valuable role. And we really try to develop a story around the Roman mythology, and rather just the story around it. So we had different roles for people to pick up, and the roles were very clear cut. Like, if you were trying to contribute to this particular track, such as documentation, or if you're good at making memes, you would get different roles, and you were getting judged. Okay, probably not really getting judged, but you were being evaluated based on the performance of your particular contribution. And people were getting all these different roles, and people were getting excited. This is also kind of banking on the fact that a lot of people just got to know of Concave, which was another project that was utilizing the role system, which is exactly what I modeled off of. And we tuned it back a little bit. We didn't go as hard as Concave. Concave was throwing out announcement every 2 minutes. We were throwing out announcement every 2 days, and it worked out quite well. People learned about us. They made tweets about us. They made memes and sent it around Twitter. Once we hit 2,000 or 3,000 members, that's when we decided to push out the announcement of the angel round. And there we got another push. I think it was overnight to like 5,000 people in the server.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, like the community, it was certainly not built immediately, but I purposely made it so that we reward those who were there without knowing anything.
So kind of like a retroactive reward system. So like those who did, it's not like you put out the expectations. Like if you all do this, you're going to receive this. You kind of took note of everyone that was in there, and it's like, well, you guys, are going to be rewarded later. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess like maybe one thing we could maybe touch on is like, why you did say you were kind of like initially were in the L1 space. Maybe we can kind of like talk about the decision to move to Arbitrum, and then what's going on in the Arbitrum ecosystem, and why people should kind of explore what's going on there, and why it's actually like one of the in your opinion, why it might be one of the best kind of L2s to kind of tackle.
Right. I think when it comes to ecosystem, it's very much a narrative play, to be very blunt. I think that, like choosing a particular ecosystem from a technical perspective is not the most difficult decision to make. However, when it comes to building community, it is one of the most important decision to make. So at the start, we weren't exactly considering mainnet. I've used these optimistic rollup systems a couple times, and I was just extremely impressed by the user experience provided by Arbitrum. Especially at the start, there were instant confirmation of transactions. We would submit approvals, and then like next moment it has been approved. And then I would submit the actual transaction, and the next moment it would be approved again. So I just thought, this is the same tooling as everything else that the Ethereum people is familiar with, and the user experience is lightning fast. So, it was a pretty plain choice to me that probably one of the best ecosystem to be associated with. On the other hand, it's also because the fees were getting expensive, and some of the like layer ones, the rotation narrative that people were playing, like people were going from Matic to Avalanche and all that stuff, it was kind of getting tiring as well. And so I just thought, okay, L2, much better user experience, probably not as cheap as say making transactions on Matic and stuff, but at the same time, if they were to fully decentralize, it would be safer than other L2s. as is technically secured by by the Ethereum mainnet, although not yet. But like it was just a very plain choice to me to make the bet of ecosystem on Arbitrum. So that's what we did.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Arbitrum as well. But it allows Tetranode to come and mint some VST, right? He famously doesn't use bridges to other chains because he doesn't trust their security.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was not aware of this, that he was adamantly opposed to going other L1s.
Oh, it didn't factor in?
No, I just wanted to use L2s. So,
yeah, makes sense. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff there as well, right? Like Dopex are there, GMX, they're built there, the Treasure DAO, they're on Arbitrum as well. Are you working on some partnerships? Do you have any alpha you might be able to leak us?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, sure. So we're talking to Redacted. We're obviously talking to Olympus, hoping to brew up some products together. And I also just had a meeting with Jones DAO.
Another member of the EconOHMy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so, always a lot of chats going on. Just a matter of prioritizing them on the roadmap. So, yeah.
All right. No alpha. Something's coming though.
I'm going to prod. I'm going to keep prodding. I did see one of the most recent tweets kind of detailing the kind of the claim, but also I saw something where you guys were talking about, you were touching on a debt offering for VST, dynamic liquidation ratios, VSTA. So maybe we can not get into too much detail, but kind of go into some of the those different topics. Also, one that you've kind of touched on that you're very much exploring or investigating is kind of like the ZK-Rollup implementation. So maybe we can kind of briefly touch on some little alpha nuggets here and there regarding those.
So the first one is permissionless debt offering. Basically, what we want to do is, given this infrastructure, given this mechanism, this liquidation mechanism, we want to spin it to a fashion where people can utilize it permissionlessly. So what we're hoping to do is actually letting people see the stability pool, so that the stability pool is going to backstop any collateral of their choice. And from that point on, anyone can come in and allow the collateralization of any assets, given that they provide enough capital into the stability pool to backstop the liquidation of that particular asset. There's still a lot of detailed things to figure out. For example, how will the oracle work? What are the attack vectors of the oracle? But that's the general idea that we have. And it's one that we think will be pretty cool to build. In terms of product market fit, we're still exploring. We don't want to build something that nobody will use. But, that's just one of the ideas that we had. And the second one is dynamic liquidation ratio. So one of the issue with the current system is that once the whole system gets kind of under collateralized, a portion of the individuals who have positions with a particular collateral will become underwater, and they are then in danger of getting liquidated. So we want to make that not as sudden of a transition. We want to smoothen that transition by making liquidation ratio not jump from a emergency ratio to a safe ratio. Sorry, the other way around, but rather to transition between them smoothly. So that requires, us to consider many factors, such as how much is in the system, how many people are currently under collateralized, what is the asset, as well as where should the upper bound be, the lower bound be. It's a very much a work in progress, but that's also another thing that we're exploring.
is it more something that would be like an aggregate of like, single collateral ratios to find some kind of, smooth kind of factor or something along those lines? Or is it more so like just trying to, define the upper and lower bounds for specific, like for single assets?
Yeah, so the way I think about it is defining the upper and lower bound is the easy task, because technically speaking, we've already done that for our current system. Using ETH as an example, 110 is the normal collateral or liquidation ratio, and 150 is the critical liquidation ratio. However, like the way that it moves between these two, that's what we want to create.
I know the VE narrative is also strong, so the kind of the locking, and then maybe also like for some of the OHMys, like what is the benefit of like a ZK rollup implementation, like later down the roadmap, for example?
Yeah, the vote escrowed token model is something that's, I would say, as important as the permissionless debt offering. I think we're hoping to make them very connected, two products that are very connected. But essentially the vote escrowed version would allow our governance token holder to be more long-term aligned with the protocol, as is the normal kind of application of this particular token model. The practical application of such a lockup is that we can then divert the token emission of VSTA toward different collateral types. Since we are multi-collateral, there is always a zero-sum kind of competition between who would get more rewards, because we have a finite amount of tokens, but there are multiple like collateral types that need like the VSTA emission. So that's kind of the perfect use case for a vote locked application, is to take your share and vote toward whichever one you want to receive more rewards, right? So, and then the last one, as you mentioned, is a ZK rollup. ZK rollup is still something farther out. We are in touch with ZK Sync, and we are looking into developing, or rather deploying onto ZK Sync. One of the model for Vesta is layer 2 first, right? We want to be on ecosystems that are just cheaper to deal with. So ZK Sync or ZK Rollups promises that as just the same as Arbitrum rollup, optimistic rollup. So that's why this is also on our roadmap. We want to really fulfill the narrative that we have created. So, layer 2 first. That's it.
Very cool. Do you want to tell us a bit about with Arbitrum? So Arbitrum, they've kind of had some difficulties in the past, like not that it's anything special, like Solana had to shut down like twice recently and then like turn it back on again or whatever it was. So with Arbitrum, you can escape to L1 at any time. It's just like costly and difficult. But sort of what conversations have you had with the Arbitrum team about like what happens if there is like congestion on the chain and like transactions aren't getting through very quickly, something like that? Have you talked about that, and like how would that play out? Like, is it not so much a concern because the loans are quite well over collateralized and then you have these individual stability pools? Is that kind of your thinking, or is it sort of, are you concerned about it moving forward, and like what mitigations are there for dealing with that?
Yeah, so we are talking to some third-party developers to prepare for the case when the sequencer goes down, so that transactions, like you said, can be submitted directly to L1. However, currently that feature is not supported, so please don't overlever on your Geon loan. This is another reason why we have initialized the ratios as such high numbers, is because we do recognize that there are particular problems that could occur because of the infrastructure that we're on. So, and like I said, like we're working around not necessarily around the clock. This isn't exactly our priority, but this is something that we're working on to work on how the backend should deal with the situation when the sequencer is down. But yeah, that's kind of the approach that we're taking right now.
And the individual stability pools, is that, so do you want to explain to us why it's important to have like a stability pool for Geom? Is it just so that the people in there are like sort of happy to have their the debts liquidated and for them to be paid out in Geom, or is there something more to it than that? Like, is there a particular risk from putting your money in one pool over another?
Yes. So stability pool exists for the sole reason of liquidating people who are underwater.
Right. So it's this set of funds which it's like a sort of pool, and people can come along and stick money in there.
That's right.
And what it is a like when a position is sort of below its collateralization ratio and needs to be liquidated, they can go to that pool and liquidate it at the like market rate. So there's guaranteed sort of liquidity for liquidations to occur. Is that
correct.
Yeah. And then why is it important that you have individual ones per token? Like, obviously you need a place to liquidate it. Is that the kind of long and short of it, or is there more to it than that?
So the reason why there are multiple is that it just makes the system much more secured. It also makes it more flexible for us to emit incentives and to ensure that the system is functioning correctly. Say that we have batched all of the stability pools into one and we support ETH, BTC, and Geom. Let's say, similar to last summer, Geom, OHM goes to 1,000 and ETH and BTC dumps to, 50% drawdown, suffers a 50% drawdown. In those instances, if the stability pool is batched together, if there's only one of them, then had you minted VST with your Geom loan and then you stuck it into the stability pool, your VST would have been used to liquidate other people's ETH and BTC loans. Mm-hmm. So that is, it's basically, it's very unfair to those who have done what in the scenario that I just mentioned.
So like, I guess the reason why you'd have isolated pools is because you can let the degens be degens, and then someone on the other side can be like, well, I'm gonna be a bit more risk off, and I'm gonna kind of, if something does go awry, I'm there to kind of be that support and take the other side, as opposed to like if it was all in one pool, it'd be more of a very much incentive misalignment.
Exactly.
So if you put your stable coins in the stability pool, mm-hmm. and they liquidate against, someone comes along and says, oh, I've got to liquidate this loan, here I'm going to trade it into the stability pool. The people in the stability pool that put in stable coins, they can end up with Geom or ETH or REMBTC, right?
That's correct.
Depending on what pool.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right.
So
very cool.
Upon the event of liquidation, the liquidated collateral is automatically transferred to the stability pool. We are partnered with B Protocol, which actually sells the received collateral once the stability pool receives it, and that's another model that it's basically a kind of a more delta neutral strategy. But it's I guess like to each of their own, right?
Yeah, so you end up with the back in the stable coin again if you do it through B Protocol.
That's right. So the B Protocol kind of stability pool is just always accruing VST, the stablecoin.
That's cool.
Do you want to tell us about the partnership with FRAX?
Yeah, sure. So we are partnered with FRAX. I believe it's a classic win-win situation where we are helping them with bootstrapping, or should I say they're helping us with bootstrapping VST liquidity. and their AMO also helps us keep the the token
Peg.
on peg. Yeah.
Yeah.
And most importantly, we're also on the receiving end of liquidity incentives. It is not present right now. However, it will be next week. So our LPs will receive both VSTA as well as FSX.
Very cool. So what are the pairs that you have? You've got a vote up for the Curve pool. Is that gone through and is that live now?
We have not yet created a curve gauge because of how Curve doesn't.
Takes a while.
Yeah. Currently, Curve doesn't support permissionless gauge creation on Arbitrum, and they have denied all custom requests, including us. So we are basically waiting for them to have the multi-chain gauge up as soon as possible, which is expected also next week. So once that's up, we will see how we shall perform in the curve war.
Very cool.
Very exciting.
So what are the pools currently for trading your VST?
Currently, it's only against FRAX.
But which platform is it on? Uniswap?
Yeah, it's on Curve.
Oh, so you have the pool, but you don't have the gauge.
That's right. We have
okay.
People can trade it, but people don't have anywhere to stuck it to get that reward.
Okay. Maybe to reiterate for users, what is the benefit of having the gauge, in conjunction with the pool? So what does that do for you guys? What's the benefit there?
For sure. So when you are yield farming, you get whatever token that you are yield farming with, and then you have to stick it into a staking contract. Under the Curve ecosystem, the staking contract is called a gauge. On Ethereum mainnet, anyone can create a gauge. However, on Arbitrum and the other ecosystem that Curve is on, not everybody can just create a gauge. It's currently permissioned in the sense that only Curve themselves can create gauges. And with a gauge, you set the foundation for participating in the Curve war, which enables you to receive reward from Curve as well. So basically right now, because we have no gauge, we can't really participate in the Curve war. But once they do support it, we shall be on our way.
So that would be sort of voting whether or not it's like your vote locked CRV or doing the sort of convex sort of voting / bribing, and like two of your partners, FRAX and Olympus, are quite large participants, and then you've also given us a little bit of alpha about some talks with Butterfly as well. So that would mean that all your friends, and like if you collect up some CVX or Curve yourself, you'd be able to vote to get some CRV rewards for people who are in that pool, and then that like is usually the foundation for providing really deep liquidity for stable coins. Is that have I got it right there, Mikey?
Yep, right on.
Perfect.
All right. I think we kind of ran through a lot of things that I think most ohmies have probably been curious about. But I might kind of segue into the kind of like little rapid fire segment to round us out, and then we can shill some socials. So it's no attention spend, no problem is the name of this one, and we're just kind of, and I'll list off some things. So you ready?
Yep.
All right. VST.
Vesta stable.
Olympus.
Olympus DAO.
ZK-Rollups.
ZK Sync.
Debt.
Debt DAO. EconOHMy, I guess Ohm,
Discord.
Yeah. Pain.
All right, I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining us, Mikey. Maybe we can kind of end things with kind of like a bit of an incubator.
So Incubator, we're like super proud of Vesta and what they've achieved, because you guys have done this so, like, you've executed so quickly, and the product is like super clean and super attractive, and it seems to have gone off without a hitch. There was that little bit of a hiccup with PrimeDAO not having the launch go quite as you planned, and you quickly were able to switch out to another one of our close collaborators, Copper Launch, from the Alchemist team, to finish that up. But yeah, so with Incubator, we're just trying to create like support network for whatever projects that they need. So not every project is going to need the same thing. So we're building out sort of some curriculums and checklists, and having a bunch of experts and experienced people to be able to work with our partners to really bring value to their products, because the projects that we support are going to be like the future of the economy, and this space is all about networking, right? So if Vesta is successful, then that increases the success of Olympus, and Vesta is like well disposed to sort of like think about how can my product sort of help out Olympus as well, so we can continue sort of strengthening that partnership and then network, because Olympus is someone we want to work with. So Mikey, we know you were quite complimentary to the Incubator program. It wasn't quite as structured as I would have liked it, but I think we were able to sort of fill any gaps that you needed when you reached out to us. Was that your experience? And sort of what would you say to a project that's thinking, oh, maybe I'll align with Olympus, but maybe I just can try and do it on my own? I think it's really hard to do something by yourself, and it's super important to have people who've like just go through this all the time to like be there to help you out.
Yeah, I can definitely speak on that. I think the Incubator has helped us quite a bit with building a community. We have, I went to the Olympus Discord the other day, and I saw so many people that I've seen before in Vesta's Discord. So, you know, it's there's definitely a huge amount of benefit that any project can, you know, are able to get if you're in the Incubator program. So I highly recommend it, you know, and most importantly, there were, like I mentioned at the start of the call, there were a lot of soft support, right? Maybe mapping out things from a strategic level, thinking about how to structure a cell. There's just a lot of expertise that, you know, if you're a first-time founder, or if you haven't built this thing that you're building, there's a lot of expertise that the people at Olympus can provide you with. So I've been a huge fan, and I will continue to be a huge fan. And let's go Olympus.
Thanks,
the community canon is our specialty. I think we're approaching 100k ohms strong, so onwards and upwards. Why don't we kind of shill away where we can find everyone? Obviously Vesta specifically.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at Vesta Finance. Nothing in between. You'll also find our Discord in our Twitter bio. Those are our two main socials at the moment. You can also find, most importantly, our official website is Vesta Finance, .xyz. You'll also find our blog there. But check us out. Borrow and lend. Let's go.
Awesome. And don't get liquidated.
Don't get liquidated.
That's the main one. Ohmies, we really appreciate you. Go check out those resources.
And if you're minting on Vesta with Ohm, that's a really like positive sum relationship for Ohm, because the more Ohm that is sort of locked away with this sort of super cheap borrowing, there's so many products that I'm thinking about that can be built on top of Vesta. I think, Mikey, you must be having some planned as well that allow like all these other things to unlock when there's got this 0% interest loans. But yeah, if you are minting against your Geom, that Geom is locked away there in that 0% interest loan, and people don't have any sort of motivation to pay that back, right? Because they're not paying interest on it. So it creates these really kind of cool things that can be built and developed, and it's really this synergistic sort of relationship between Olympus and Vesta.
Super exciting. All right, Ohmys, that is it is Monday, the 14th of February. This one will come out, and there'll be a bunch of other things coming your way through Agora. We'll catch you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
See ya. Thanks, Mikey.